Hello. We are going to be talking about relational intimacy and sacred union today. Of course, all of this is piggybacked on the modeling of the twin flame template. However, you do not have to have that coding or blueprint to learn and activate your own growth in preparation for sacred union, and of course, divine union follows that. As always, these talks go through the stages, recognizing what the karmic expression of relationship is or has been for us, conscious relationship into sacred union. And I want to just state that there are phases and stages along this entire trajectory for our development and of our development. So I realize that there are some phases and stages that can feel a little triggering, or can feel perhaps even a little, what's the right word, disaffected or disconnected from the higher love that we're talking about. And yet every phase and stage allows us to develop into greater maturity and mastery. So the whole ascension process in general, whether you're on this path of relationship or not, there are many other paths of the ascension process, but all of them, once we hit the ascension phase of this journey, we come from awakening, we move into ascension. And once we hit that ascension phase, it is truly a path of mastery and maturity, because we are saying yes to evolving beyond our mere humanness. We're still human, obviously, and we are still honoring our humanness, but we are growing out of the programming that humanity was conditioned into and in many ways enslaved into in order to keep us operating at a very base level and not remembering our amazingness, not remembering our magnificence, not remembering our divinity. So when we're looking at relationships, this has been one of the biggest divisions that has taken place on our planet, using the masculine against the feminine against the masculine, creating these deep separations on top of the separation that is already there, but pitting us against each other in order to stop the power of union and the power of love from literally empowering our entire planet. So all of the dysfunctions are parts of the phases and stages, but they're also beyond us. They aren't actually who humans are. And that can lead into a whole other topic that is not about sacred union necessarily, because it feeds into everything about why we're on this trajectory of awakening and ascension. So this journey of relational intimacy and higher love teaches us maturation and mastery. It also teaches us the spectrum between codependency and, strong independence. independence. Let's just say independence. And we grow through the phases and stages of our relational development from both our psychology into our spirituality, and they merge and mingle and all of that, right? And I've talked about that before, that, my Guru Dev used to talk about that when we first start coming into that healing journey, it's about our self-awareness, right? It is the psychology of our awakening. But once we hit more of that place of wholeness, doesn't mean we don't still have stuff. We recognize that we're no longer just operating from psychology, that we're now spiritually growing and evolving and maturing and embodying. So the stages and phases, each of them are necessary. And our growth and development along the way change our paradigms of believing, thinking, feeling, overall perception of what is relationship, right? What is romance? What is it and what does it mean? What does it take and what does it mean to come into not just a healthy relationship, as in the karmic or as in the conscious relationship paradigm and phase, but to come into a highly spiritualized, devotional relationship with our beloved. So I'm just going to read a couple things. This is not going to be a very long, I don't think, but we'll see, a long video. But as I was journaling recently and just like trying to summarize some of the downloads that I was getting, is that there are very outdated paradigms of what relationship is and how relationships should be. And these are now being healed. And we could probably go back into thousands of years and see that yes, there has definitely been many imbalances along the way, and the pendulum tends to try to swing back and forth to find balance. But whenever it goes from one extreme to the next, it creates more division. But if we can recognize that each swing of that pendulum is actually there to recalibrate a new perspective. It isn't the story, right? It isn't the end all, and it isn't, it doesn't discount what the other side of the pendulum was, right? This is the polarity that we live in on this planet, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, up, down, black, white, right? It's like there's a swinging effect that we do, and then the hope is that we come into these middle grounds where things unify, things balance and harmonize. And so, for thousands of years we've been going through this pendulum swing, and then there's reactivity at whatever point that bubbles up, like this is wrong, this is bad, this has been treating this I'll just stay, I guess, within relationship. this gender this way and this gender the other way, and power struggles, and yeah, it's just kind of grown over time where we've had so many of these pendulums that different paradigms we get rooted in, and then our programming becomes, kind of a mishmash of all of it. And yet, we're now going through another resurgence of looking and sensing and seeing things from a whole new perspective. The beauty of it, though, I believe, is that we now have more of a vision that gives us a peek into what does this deeper union look like? What does that true balance and harmonization really mean and look like? And this is coming from not just the psychological perspectives of the intellect, and then allowing that intellect to sort of form how we, or inform how we behave and how we love, and how we create safety and boundaries, and get our footing back from where we have felt kept down, right? Because we're still like in that crazy fight mode when we're there. But the new way of seeing allows us to go, oh, I see now where we're really seeking to come into this higher experience and reality of love and of intimacy and of safety and of that union. And I really believe that, and I'll talk about this in an upcoming class that we're going to be doing for Sacred Union and the Twin Soul templates. And that's going to be over on Patreon, just a heads up. I lost my train of thought. So, oh man, I just lost my train of thought. So we're getting this vision of what this really looks like and means, because we are now spiritually evolving. We're energetically shifting, and the frequencies of the divine, of the cosmos, are changing our perceptions. And so this is flooding us with new ways of not just understanding, but learning how to live from within our own being a very different experience. That is ascension. That is embodiment. These are the stages and phases that we must learn and know and deeply embody and live, that then allow us to move into the next level of consciousness. So this process takes us from, let's just say, commitment, right? Oh, I know what I was going to say. So if we go back into ancient times, I know that there's some dispute about this, but I'm going to bring forth that marriage, before it was seen as ownership, right? And that women were property to be owned. Before that was the secular belief, and then maybe became the spiritual belief. There was a time within the mystery teachings and the understandings of this larger spiritual realm during a time when the consciousness on our planet was so dense, right? It was so black and white. It was so good, bad. This is when a lot of the original scriptures were written, right? And so even though the deeper understandings are always woven in there, they're very hard to perceive, especially if we don't know what we're looking for, right? So there was a time when the sacred marriage, right? Divine union, the sacred marriage, the inner marriage, the Holy of Holies, right? This goes back into the times in Jerusalem. India had the same type of rites of passage in the temples, right, for the divine feminine. Egypt had these same deep undercurrents that were not on the surface because most of humanity couldn't grok it, because at that time there was only a minority that would be ready for these initiations, that would be able to hold the energetics to step into these mystery teachings. So the inner marriage or the sacred marriage was based on something very different than our human marriage. Now, I'm saying that even though there were threads that attempted to make it through, to anchor in those higher truths, but again, humanity had missed the deeper levels of the development of what is happening on our planet right now through sacred union, through the templates of the twin souls, and through, or rather on our way to divine union. All right, so we're going to go more into that coming up very soon, probably in December, just a heads up on that. So we're moving from commitment, right? What commitment means, till death do us part, right? In marriage. Well, till death do us part from the psychology level of humanity and our lack of inner connection and emotional, mental, spiritual, and embodied IQ. We haven't had that, right? We've been slowly trying to work our way. Commitment becomes an obligation, right? Whether you're happy or not, whether you're aligned or not, whether your partner or you has maybe grown and the other one is growing in a different direction, based on family, based on children, right? So this is just an example. There's a lot of programming that goes in here. And it's kind of like the memes. I bring this up a lot. The memes that give you a sound bite, right? Be here now. Just be present. Okay. We know that there's truth in that. But in order to embody that, if everybody could embody that, we would be living in a very different world. But the embodiment process, in order to be able to hold that level of presence and to understand what that presence is an evolutionary process. So, till death do us part, to make that commitment and to be aligned with it in a very true And I'm not saying that some people can't attain this. A true and fulfilled and growth and ebb and flow way where connection is maintained and sustained, where the heart has grown into staying open and unconditional. Okay? That's a very, there's a lot involved in order to do that. The programming does not bring us happiness. The programming can bring us obligation, guilt and shame, feeling like a failure, right? Disappointing, feeling like the bad guy in one way, shape, or form. Commitment is being transformed into devotion. When we come into these levels of maturation, when we come through not just the healing process and the know thyself process, but then we come into these levels of deep, deep self-embodiment, we are able to move into devotion. And then where integrity becomes honor, safety becomes sacredness. Right? So these are sort of the recalibrations that we're learning to make through the new blueprints that are landing. And what they do is they allow us our humanness, right? And they allow us the space to access our truth and to live from our truth and to open to these higher qualities of being that are much higher experiences. They're much higher experiences of consciousness and of presence than the psychology, the limited psychology. There's spiritual psychology as well. All of this is phases and stages. All of this is so nuanced, right? And subtle. But in order to know the subtleties, in order to anchor and embody the wisdom and the consciousness from the subtleties, you must embody the process. You must move through the phases and stages of becoming where we're going. I think I'm going to end it there for the most part. I'm starting to, you might be noticing that there's becoming a stronger message and a thread through everything that is really pointing us towards embodiment. And this is for a reason. And those of you who are really wanting to see transformation in yourself and in your life, you will be called to embodiment. The embodiment process is what gives us lasting and consistent and the lived experience of our transformation. Otherwise, we just go through a change, and changes may take hold for a while, and if it's not anchored and embodied, we're back into old behavior. We're back into old thought forms. So it is the anchoring in and embodying the frequencies, which are consciousness, as the way of being, the way of becoming a new being, right? Uh, um, yeah, it's like we're transforming from our humanness into a higher, more evolved humanity. And the relational piece is really big because this is the salve to the deep pain and suffering and fear that we have of love, of deep connection, of vulnerability, and of surrender to our beloved. So if you're interested in this journey, stay connected. And we're going to be doing this on Patreon on a live call soon. And you'll be able to access that live call for free. So I'm super excited about this, and this is truly the deeper part of what I am bringing right now as we move into 2026, and yet it's still just a part of the bigger ascension process. So this isn't necessarily for everybody, but those of you who feel it will know, right? Those who are seeking love, that want to live in love, right? And want to be deeply connected to your person and experience that on a deeper soul level. So thanks for being here. Thanks for resonating. If this rings true for you, then please like and subscribe, and we'll talk again soon. Blessings.